So I'm occasionally accused, you're not going to believe this, of calling people Nazis too often. And it's a criticism that I disagree with because I feel like I normally substantiate my argument, pretty well. So I want to be really clear about this, okay? Now, I'm not saying that Candace Owens is one. I'm only saying that this argument really feels like a Nazi argument, you know? That it's a feeling that I have. I'm sharing my feelings with you. Do not invalidate my feelings. That's no bueno, okay? Anyway, I saw a screenshot of this tweet cycling around, and I'm not joking when I say this. I actually thought that it was a joke or that it was like a fake tweet, like somebody had made it up to exaggerate Candace Owens' horrible positions. But, well, here it is. To politicians across the world, black Americans are considered the dumbest ethnic group with the lowest emotional IQ. In other words, the easiest political pawns to destabilize America from the inside out. Then we have then we have a 14-minute happy Juneteenth. Thank you, Candace Owens. But let's focus on the tweet for a second, if I may. Now, again, I don't think my personal belief is that Candace Owens doesn't actually believe anything at all. That's my personal opinion, you know. But Candace Owens has said weird stuff about like Hitler before, for example. Candace Owens has said that like Hitler's problem wasn't what he did in Germany; it was when he started invading other countries, or like, yeah, she called Hitler a globalist essentially. And there's a lot of other really weird stuff in there. And again, Candace Owens, why do you think Candace Owens is a grifter but not legit? Because Candace Owens sued a school for racial discrimination for tens of thousands of dollars like a decade ago. And now she argues there's no such thing as racial discrimination and she's never experienced it. Like, I think she's one of the people I'd feel comfortable saying is a grifter because there's such an obvious and direct contradiction between the things she believes and the things she says, you know? Recently, Candace Owens' brother actually made it big. Candace Owens' brother was at some like PTA meeting for parents, and he went up there and he said, "I have like a medical degree in this, you know, and how can I be oppressed when I'm successful?" And he said like, "I'm just a parent, you know." But it was Candace Owens' brother. Does anyone have a link to that? And also, I don't think he actually has a medical degree. I think he may have lied about that a little bit. Bosch, Candace Owens answers questions on nationalism, denies that Hitler was a nationalist, immediately makes a blood and soil argument by saying she has concerns about birth rate in the UK. Interesting. Is that 3829?
Yeah, so in the current age, I feel like the political debate stems around nationalism and globalism, which, however, they're weaponized within the media.
Curious.
I feel especially in Europe and like in America, these movements are being energized. Do you feel the momentum will last? In regards to the EU, Guy Verhofstadt referred to his base of the movement as the summer of populism in quotation marks. But 2 years down the line, these governments are realizing there's a clear trajectory in the opposite, like the status against the status quo. How do you feel like the long-term like prognosis is for these particular movements?
And I think Candace Owens answers second there. So Charlie Kirk. Oh man, Charlie Kirk answers first.
The UK more over the last so
verbosely at that.
Don't want at all with the word nationalism. I think that it gets the definition gets poisoned by elitists that actually want globalism. Globalism is what I don't want. So when you think about whenever we say nationalism, the first thing people think about, at least in America, is Hitler. You know, he was a National Socialist, but if Hitler just wanted to make Germany great and have things run well, okay, fine. The problem is that he had dreams outside of Germany. He wanted to globalize. He wanted everybody to be German, everybody to be speaking German, everybody to look a different way. That's not, to me, that's not nationalism. So in thinking about how it could go bad down the line.
I really wish the camera was on the audience right now, because if it was, I feel like at least a couple of people here would be doing double takes, you know?
I don't really have an issue with nationalism. I really don't. I think that it's okay. It's important to retain your country's identity and to make sure that what's happening here, which I think is incredibly worrisome in terms of the decrease in the birth rate that we're seeing in the UK, is what you kind of want to avoid. So I don't have I have no problems with nationalism.
Yeah, so a couple of suspect arguments here. Let's leave aside the questions of authenticity and sincere belief and just say that, well, I can't say Candace Owens is a Nazi, but I've heard those arguments from Nazis before. I'll say that much. Anyhow, the reason why I wanted to talk about this tweet specifically is because I wanted to talk a little bit about this theory, okay? So, the thing is, and a lot of people don't understand this, is that not everybody who is a Nazi will tell you by looking you in the face and saying, I'm a Nazi. Believe it or not, actually. A lot of them will not say that, and instead they'll make arguments that, if thought about or pursued to their logical conclusion, lead you to the same basic outcomes. This was a criticism that I had of Sargon of Akkad. We all remember? This was in one of the debates, the first or the second, I don't know. But here's something Sargon of Akkad believes. And Sargon of Akkad is an ethno-nationalist by his own admission. I don't know if you've seen the debate that I had with him, but he has said, like, very, very flatly, that he wants to restrict the population of England by the ethnic identities of the people who respond to the census. And, like, okay, ethnic state, ethno-state. So that's pretty straightforward. But anyway, Sargon of Akkad believes, and he said this, or Carl, that there is like an SJW conspiracy, that like SJWs have infiltrated academia, and they've infiltrated politics, and they've infiltrated corporations, and they're doing all of this because they don't like men, and they don't like white people very much either, and they're using their secretive influence from behind the scenes to attack those power groups, the white men. One of the ways they'll do this is through the promotion of globalization and immigration, including bringing in non-white people into these countries to force diversify them. Now, for those of you who are familiar with Nazi talking points, this is essentially the Jewish question. This is word for word what both the original Nazis believed and modern neo-Nazis believe. The ways in which they've like specifically contextualized the conspiracy theory changed because, I mean, it's been like 100 years since the Nazi Party first came about. But basically the argument is that Jewish people have infiltrated academia and the government and corporations, and that they're using their influence because they want to attack the Goyim, and they want to do so covertly. And here's the critical point to this argument. This is what Candace Owens essentially does right here. A very common Nazi argument is that the clever Jewish people will use the hordes of black and brown people to attack whites. Essentially, that black and brown people are like tools or servants of Jewish people, like instruments of revenge against the Goyim. This is a really, really, really common talking point in many far-right circles. Essentially, the idea that, like, when mass immigration brings like Mexican people and so on and so forth to America, that's not just a natural product of demographic shifts and economic systems leading towards further economic globalization. That's actually a very deliberate set of policies being brought about by Jewish people trying to destroy white people or whatever. Didn't Family Guy do a bit about this? Wait, actually, I think I remember this. I distinctly remember there being a Family Guy bit. I remember seeing this at some point where it was something like how brave a disabled Nazi is. And it's like a guy with Down syndrome or something, but he's saying like, the Jews will not replace us. Black and brown people are being used as the Jews are using black and brown people to attack white people. Does anyone know what I'm talking about here? Oh God, if somebody can find that clip. The only reason I'm mentioning this is because this is well known enough of a conspiracy theory that like Family Guy was riffing off of it with the expectation that their massive audience would be familiar with those talking points. If anyone can find that little clip for me, I'll show it. I'll risk copyright because I'm just trying to point out, like, this isn't some like weird esoteric, you have to read 3 books deep to find this. This is like even Family Guy is pointing out that this was a, hold on. Oh goodness, is this it? Hold on. I might just have to play the audio here. Yep, okay, hold on. Also, content warning, Family Guy ableism, etc., etc. Just listen to the point.
Neo-Nazi with Down syndrome. The Jews are using the blacks as muscle against the white race. We are the perfect race.
I don't like his racism, but I admire his courage.
Classic Family Guy joke. We all get it. But you understand the point made here, right? The point I'm trying to get at here is that this is a well-known enough, like, Nazi talking point that even Family Guy is riffing off of it. You get me? We understand? Okay. All right. I just want to point that out because I so often get accused of conspiracism. Like, nobody believes that. Well, no, actually, yes, they do. And that's kind of what this tweet is. The only real difference is that Candace Owens doesn't specifically say Jews, and Candace Owens also doesn't say black people are the dumbest ethnic group with the lowest emotional IQ. Candace Owens says other people consider black Americans the dumbest ethnic group with the lowest emotional IQ, which essentially is just a way of, like, in the language you're using, transposing the responsibility of suggesting the Jewish question to, like, other people. Does that make sense? What's an emotional IQ? I think, the answer to that varies depending on who I ask as well. Anyway, look, okay. I don't know how much this is resonating with people I'm talking about, but, like, this is deeply, deeply worrying, okay? Like, I need you to understand that, all right? One of the problems we've had with the past, like, 5-6 years since the Trump administration really took off, is the fact that there have been a lot of far-right talking points that have been normalized in common discourse. That's not to say that they didn't exist prior. There have always been, like, far-right political participants in our system. That's not, like, a new thing. But nowadays, it feels like people are way more comfortable making these talking points openly and outwardly in ways that, like, there's not even much effort being put into the dog whistle. And this is being accepted. This is being commonly accepted. Anti-Semitism, for example, is something that purportedly people on the right, people on the American right, American Republicans, are very, very against. The way that the Jewish people are a minority that Republicans are not as keen on being openly discriminatory against. The Trump administration, when it comes to black people, oh, BLM, they're all thugs. When it comes to Latin people, oh, what a Mexican rapists from the border, like that sort of thing. But with Jewish people, it's a very different kind of relationship, where Jewish people are aesthetically elevated, mostly because of their association with Israel, America's wealthiest military base. And if you're not a part of that, like, Zionist Jewish group, you're, like, practically less than human to them. Ben Shapiro calls these people, like, bad Jews. There's been a long-standing tradition for conservative Jewish people and conservative Christian people as well to, Genos, Jewish in name only, to, like, dehumanize or belittle them. Like, you're not even a real Jewish person because you're not backing our, genocidal colonial settler project in the Middle East, et cetera, et cetera. And I want to be clear, like, in so many ways, language that was not just normalized, but part and parcel to the Nazi regime is becoming normalized in the right here and now today. I've talked about this before. One of the things that Jordan Peterson likes to talk about is cultural Marxism. But cultural Marxism, and again, this isn't just me, you can look it up on Wikipedia if you want, cultural Marxism is basically just a modernized interpretation of cultural Bolshevism, which was a Nazi conspiracy theory. Simple as that. It was just a Nazi conspiracy theory. It was used by the Nazi Party, and the argument under cultural Bolshevism was that pro-egalitarian SJW, they didn't say SJW, but they essentially meant social justice warrior, Jews were trying to destroy Germany by introducing Bolshevik ideology to education, to business, to the government. And what do cultural Marxist theorists say? They say, well, the SJWs are trying to destroy America by introducing Marxist ideology. We see this right now with the critical race theory thing. Right now. It's not just that critical race theory is un-American. It's that critical race theory is Marxist, and Marxists are un-American. And the Marxists in this country are infiltrating our academia and our government in order to dispel Marxist ideology. And it's the same conspiracy theory. They're just not saying Jewish people. And I don't really know or care whether or not they choose Jewish people as their new scapegoat. That's actually the beauty of their new war machine. It can be anybody. It doesn't have to be Jewish people. It can switch now because they haven't specifically designated Jewish people as the orchestrator of this conspiracy theory. They can use any group of people. What about trans people? Haven't you heard about the trans lobby? There are people who legitimately believe the only reason homosexuality is not still considered a mental illness in the DSM is because of, like, the gay lobby threatening, like, psychology groups in the US. It can be them. It can be BLM. It can be anyone. It could be Jewish people if it needs to. It can be feminists if it needs to. It can be Democrats. It can be anyone. There's always some conspiracy, some modern progressive group that has infiltrated every level of our society. And for a while, I thought it ended there. But now we're getting to the comma, and they're using black people as muscle to destroy America. We've added another piece to the puzzle. Do you understand why this worries me? The idea, this vague conspiracism, this has been around for a while now, and it's been popular for years now, but now another piece has slotted right into the puzzle. Now it's not just the conspiracy. Now it's also, and they're using the blacks to carry out their anti-American agenda. And it's like, okay, all right. How open, how flagrant do we need to be here exactly? I mean, what's the next puzzle piece? I'm really asking, by the way. Oh, sorry, not dispel, I meant disseminate. My apologies. Yeah, what's the next puzzle piece? I'm legitimately wondering here. Like, after you go once you go to, it's cultural Marxism, and they're using, like, black people to attack America. Where do you go past that? Are they going to start talking more openly about the Frankfurt School? That feels like it comes in and out of favor, you know? Maybe they're going to start talking more and more about the Frankfurt School. Maybe they're going to start saying, this particular group of influencer, you know? They'll never say Jewish people, by the way. What they'll do is they'll point to traditionally Jewish intellectual traditions, Jewish thinkers, Jewish scholars, these guys. And they don't need to say Jewish people. Folks, their followers will pick up the message. They don't need to. They don't actually need to name ethnic groups here. If you fill in like 98% of a puzzle and hand it to, like, your audience, they're not, well, they are stupid, but they're not that stupid. They can fill it in themselves, and maybe it'll be Jewish people, maybe it'll be some other group. It doesn't be globalists, elites, the Marxists, the way they constantly go on and on and on about Soros, and it's something to be concerned about, okay? And I really would not be surprised if, especially running into the next election cycle, we see a resurgence of the narrative that it's not Black Lives Matter that's the real threat. It's the people controlling Black Lives Matter. I bet you there's going to be that rhetorical shift, especially since over time, BLM is going to become more popular. Over time, these socially progressive movements, they tend to be more popular, you know, especially because it's only a matter of time before there's another highly publicized murder of an innocent black person, you know? And when that happens, it's going to grow more popular, and they're going to have to change their tone. It's not BLM that's the issue. It's actually whoever's controlling BLM.